Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. Boy, as soon as I went live, my earbud just went out. I guess I'm going to have to buy something else. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining me. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. Hit me up in the chat, guys. We're live here. We've got folks coming on, more and more folks coming on. Yes, this is great. This is wonderful. I'm going to hit y'all with a couple of funny things before we get into the big news, but let me give you a brief rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight. This is actually breaking. It was released by the Post-Millennial. This is something in the past couple hours, I guess, but USAID is officially being dissolved. That's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, as you saw in the thumbnail, we're going to talk about J.D. Vance going to Denmark. And oh boy, the leadership in Denmark is ticked. They are not happy about it. But you know, we'll discuss some of the finer points about this one. There was also a report that it was written in a book, actually, that the Democrats had a plan for Joe Biden to, quote, die in office. And they talked about doing a switcheroo in 2023. Rochester, New York. Police officers are being prosecuted for helping ICE. RFK Jr. calls the West Virginia governor fat right to his face, but it says he's going to be his personal trainer. We've got Tim Walz calling for a shadow government. We've got a serious violence problem in America. We've been seeing it, and I've been talking about it, but there's a kid that got beaten mercilessly at a junior high, and teacher didn't even put down their coffee. That was interesting. And then we've got some stuff going on in the UK that I normally don't talk about the UK. We've seen it. It's kind of going down the tubes. It really is. But there's some stuff happening that's going to come about on Monday that is, I would call it really a warning to the U.S. for something that could happen because of wokeism here in America, and it pertains to the justice system. And let's see, what else have we got? A couple other things that we'll talk about. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into something funny as we've got more and more folks coming online. Be sure to hit me up in the chat. This is a funny joke. This was posted by Elon, and it was obviously we got to make fun of pronouns, but here we go. It says, he says, my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. This was an old tweet, and Nina Turner is a well-known, I guess you would call it rabble-rouser from the left. And she said, pronouns aren't a joke. And then somebody else posted knock, knock. And this person says, who's there? Oh, I don't know. I found it funny. Yes. Do you guys get my sense of humor? I thought it was pretty funny. Okay. So Scott Jennings, I've got to hit you with a couple of Scott Jennings clips because I do this every time, but I just can't help myself. This guy is in such a prime position to make people on the left look stupid. And I'm okay with that because we need to do it at every possible turn. Here's Scott Jennings. This is kind of a mashup of some of the stuff he said, I think, over the past week. Check this out.
I think Republicans aren't interested in any lectures on accountability in the military after the Biden administration. I mean, the bar for getting rid of a Secretary of Defense is apparently pretty high. You can get 13 people killed and go AWOL and not tell the commander-in-chief, and that's not a fireable offense. He did his lectures about accountability and national security after letting 10 million people into the country who raped and murdered and committed violent acts and no remorse or accountability.
What are you talking
no
about?
More lectures. No more lectures about national security. This was a hugely successful mission. The decision was righteous. The strike was the exact right thing to do, and it was executed flawlessly.
He was not on that signal chain. But the idea that he didn't know about it when he was first asked about it and the extent to which he doesn't know seems rather deliberate.
If he didn't know and he didn't have the facts or he hadn't been briefed on it, what is the alternative here? To go out and make something up or to say, I don't know. I haven't been told. And my understanding is he didn't know about it. He wasn't on it. Maybe he wasn't even aware what signal is. I mean, it is not inconceivable that the president, when I didn't see the timestamps on these questions, didn't actually have enough information to comment publicly at the time on any of these matters. It's not out of the ordinary for a president to hold back until they have all the facts or all the things they need to know to make a legitimate comment.
He has not been briefed and he can't speak to it.
And what's worse, a president not having all the information he needs to make a legitimate comment, so he holds back in the moment before being ready to make a comment, or I don't know, willfully lying to the American people about the condition of the President of the United States, which went on for 4 years in this country by all of your colleagues.
Totally
wrong.
That is totally wrong. That is totally wrong.
I hope you read all the books that are coming out. I hope you read all the books that are coming out.
Joe Biden. I mean,
you guys
I don't know if you're
upset
a judge.
that Trump is exhibiting some I want to get more facts, and I'm going to be lectured by the people who lied to the American people about the condition of the president.
Oh my God!
No way.
No, but
Not going to take it.
That's first of all, that's outrageous.
Is
That's
it?
outrageous. Yes, it is.
You
I
think
did
the
not
truth was
lie.
told? You think the truth was told?
I will say.
Did the White
and
House tell the truth?
I look forward to this.
Scott,
I
even
will
if
look
that was
forward to this discussion.
Do you all believe the truth was told about Biden?
Scott, do you want government or do you want your lick back? Because even if all of that happened in the past, we're in the present now. So we need a president that is capable.
And so what? He said, I don't know. What, did it hurt
You
your
can't-
life that
you
he said,
can't
I don't
keep
know one
using
time?
that Biden did it, Biden did it,
Sure
Biden
I
did
can.
it. But you
Of
cannot
course I
write
can.
that for 4 years.
I absolutely
and expect
can.
the country to move
I
forward.
100% can.
You cannot.
Biden wrote it for 4 years on Trump, and Obama wrote it for 8 years on George W. Bush. You're damn right. We were right.
Okay. It is.
This guy. I love this guy. But it's true. You know, they say, well, the past is the past. That's then. This is now. And yet for Biden's entire presidency, it was the past, the past, the past, the past, what Trump did, Trump did, Trump did, Trump did. And pay attention to Trump. Don't pay attention to what we're doing now. That was honestly, of that entire mashup, that was my favorite point that he made. And he says, yeah, we wrote it. We're going to write it. That the last administration, you know, really hosed the American people. And they're saying now, oh, egg prices, they were talking about egg prices when they were going up. And this was 6 weeks into Donald Trump's presidency, as if the election turns things on a dime. In some ways it does. In some ways it does, but the economy doesn't turn on a dime. This is turning around a big old ship.
And accountability.
I think Republicans aren't.
Turning this economy around it's like turning around a massive ship on a tiny little river. And that's basically what it's like. It's a slow, arduous process. But cutting things, that can be done on a dime, thank goodness. And here we go. So USAID is officially being closed. It's being dissolved, and the functions that actually meet the president's vision and the president's agenda, those will be rolled under Marco Rubio in the Department of States. But everything else, it's gone, done with it, no more. And so this is from the Post Millennial. The State Department has officially notified Congress that the U.S. Agency for International Development has been dissolved, and the remaining operations of the agency will be run by the State Department itself. According to United Press International, the State Department officially told Congress that USAID was dissolved on Friday, which is today. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement today, the Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development have notified Congress of their intent to undertake a reorganization that would involve realigning certain USAID functions to the department by July 1st, 2025, and discontinuing the remaining USAID functions that do not align with the administration priorities. Now, I would love to see an itemized list of all the things that are going to get rolled up under the Department of State, but this is progress. When they shrank the size of the USAID staff, that was a start by thousands and thousands of people. And by the way, if you haven't heard, RFK Jr. is doing the same thing with HHS. He has shrunk it by, it's something like 15, 20%. So this is something that can be done quick, fast, and in a hurry. Things that the president has control over, he can shrink them. And it's not the first time it's been done, right? I've talked about other agencies that over time have gone away. But typically what happens is they get rolled under something else and they don't actually shrink. They stay the same size. They just get moved under DOD, or they'll get moved under some Department of State, whatever. In this instance, they have shrunk it drastically as far as manpower goes. The budget is being slashed, and whatever aligns with the president's priorities can be moved under the Department of State. This is the way it should be done, I believe. You guys let me know in the comments. Does this make you happy that we are shutting down some of these agencies? I want to talk to somebody about this. I would love to get somebody on the show to talk about this. But there's a lot of people who have built actually helpful organizations out there that were being funded by USAID. I personally don't believe that the taxpayers should be paying for it. But how are these agencies? I'm talking about hospitals in foreign countries that are run by missionaries or other people. It's a complex situation, but when we had the opportunity at one point to be a generous country because we were running with a balanced budget, we didn't have extreme debt and all that sort of stuff. I'm not necessarily opposed to us when we're in a financially strong situation being involved in some of those things, but the Department of State or USAID was using them to manipulate these countries in a lot of instances. That I have a problem with. They were wasting billions and billions and billions of dollars. Obviously, I have a problem with that. And so is it even something we can reasonably do, or is it something we should just nix altogether? Because there are people doing good things under USAID. So I don't know. This is something that I would love to talk about with someone who is directly impacted by these huge cuts. And these are the good-natured people that are actually doing good things in foreign country, helping folks ridden with poverty. But I just see it as we can't support that anymore. We're not in a financially strong situation. We don't have the money. The coffers have run dry. So anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Now that we've got quite a few folks on, this is great. I'm loving the audience. Y'all hit me up in the chat. But J.D. Vance, okay, so he went to Greenland, and this was actually impromptu. It was supposed to be his wife that was going, and at the last minute, there was a lot of hoopla being made about her going, so he said, all right, I'm going to go with you. And essentially he said, I'm not going to let her have all the fun. I'm going to go with her as well. And so this is from CNN. Vice President J.D. Vance on Friday made the highest profile case to date for American control of Greenland during a controversial visit to the semi-autonomous island, which its residents had resisted and its leaders said was unwelcome. And not everybody, we've seen plenty of interviews from people in Greenland who are like, yes, let's bring it on. Let's be part of the U.S. Denmark isn't doing squat for us. But this is a quote here from Vance. He said, we want to have good relations with everybody, he said during a visit to an American military installation high above the Arctic Circle. Quote, but part of having good relations is showing your strength when you have to. I'm going to play a couple of videos. And by the way, in the thumbnail, you saw where he said, it is cold as S up here. I try to keep the show PG to PG-13. That was an actual quote. When he showed up to the Space Force facility in above the Arctic Circle in Greenland, that was the first thing that he actually said. So let's listen to him talk about Denmark real quick. And then we're going to talk about how they, in an abbreviated form, how they're going to go about bringing Greenland under the umbrella of the United States. Let's listen to this. Here we go.
A lot of attacks at the Trump administration, at the president, at me, at others in our administration for saying the obvious, which is that Denmark hasn't done a good job at keeping Greenland safe. And one of the things I heard was, well, what about the many Danes who lost their lives in the war on terror fighting alongside the United States? Well, look, we obviously honor the sacrifice of our Danish friends in the war on terror 20 years ago, just as, for example, the French honor the sacrifice of Americans in Normandy 80 years ago. But recognizing that there are important security partnerships in the past does not mean that we can't have disagreements with allies in the present about how to preserve our shared security for the future. And that's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. It's consistent with the first Trump administration, where you saw significant investments in Arctic security, and it will continue over the next 4 years under President Trump's leadership. There was a lot of criticism.
I really, every time I hear him speak, I think the guy would make a really good president. He really would. I like him more and more as time goes on. But that's a great point. He's saying that the people in Greenland have been underserved by Denmark. Denmark's had it. It's one of those things that, you've got it and it's there. You don't worry about it all that much. There's not a lot of people in Greenland. There really aren't. I think it's like 50,000, 60,000 people. It's a minuscule country. It's tiny. But they've got a lot of rare earth elements, which have been largely unmined because it's such a difficult environment to do it in. But for us, there are strategic advantages to Greenland, and Trump is just, he's not even playing it that close to the chest. He's just saying, yeah, I think we're going to do this. I think we're going to do this. And so the pressure is rising, and he sends a perfect spokesperson in the form of the vice president, who's the highest ranking U.S. official to ever go to Greenland, I guess diplomatically speaking. And yeah, how are we going to do it, though? This is the thing. I've got to play this video. This is another clip from J.D. Vance during his visit. Let's see. Let's pull this up here.
simple. Yes, the people of Greenland are going to have self-determination. We hope that they choose to partner with the United States because we're the only nation on earth that will respect their sovereignty and respect their security, because their security is very much our security, as these brave Americans show.
Yeah, I mean, it's the strategic location of Greenland is significant to the United States. And, you know, it's self-determinate. He's saying, and this is what Trump has been, he doesn't say it in his language, but this is obviously you have to translate Donald Trump sometimes, which is fine. Those of us who have been following him for a while and not listening to the mainstream media about him, but actually listening to what he's saying, we understand how to decipher what he says. He doesn't say that it's a self-determinate thing. He kind of talks about it like, oh, we're going to take Greenland. But all the talk around it is the people get to decide this. Let the people in Greenland make their own determination, make their own decision. Are you going to be benefited more by the United States, or are you benefited more by Denmark? We're neighbors after all. I think it's only, it seems to me to be a reasonable option. Do you want to have the most powerful country in the world protecting you? It's not saying, I haven't seen anything about it actually becoming another state or, becoming an entity of the United States other than falling under our security umbrella and not being aligned with Denmark. So, something else that he addressed, by the way, I don't know. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. So hit me up in the chat. Do you guys think that this Greenland deal is a good thing, is a bad thing? Do you think it is authoritarian, which is what a lot of folks on the left tend to say? I would love to get your opinion on it. So hit me up in the chat about it. But one thing that had to be addressed, that he did address, was this signal chat that was going on. And I have some interesting thoughts on this. I find them interesting, or I'm hoping you find them interesting. I don't find myself that interesting, but nonetheless, current and former U.S. officials J.D. Vance addressed this, but this is again from CNN. Current and former U.S. officials have told CNN they believe two texts sent by National Security Advisor Mike Walz and CIA Director John Ratcliffe in the now infamous group chat involving senior U.S. officials discussing battle plans. No, it was not battle plans to strike Houthi targets in Yemen, may have done long-term damage to the U.S.'s ability to gather intelligence on the Iran-backed group going forward. So what has been released of these text messages that I've read is, and again, there could be more to it, I don't know, but all indications are, no, there were no battle plans. This was top-level leadership having a discussion on what was supposed to be, or is, a secured app. Not that they should be using that. They should, DOD should invest in or Department of State or whoever should invest in their own app to do this sort of stuff, but they're using Signal. And they were talking about the things the president was talking about. There was an open discussion and dialogue of agreement and disagreement between those people on how they should proceed, whether this should be, I think it was J.D. Vance in one of the text threads that was saying, yes, the president needs to remember that this if we do this would be off message or would not be aligned with his promises to the American people, these sorts of things. So there was open and honest dialogue, and that's honestly the kind of conversation I would want to have, or I want to go on between senior level leadership, whether it's DOD, Department of State, the Vice President, Director of National Intelligence, although Tulsi Gabbard, I don't think, actually wrote anything on those. But here's another piece of this. Although messages from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth detailed the sequencing, timing, and weapons to be used in a March attack on the Houthis have drawn the most scrutiny because they could have endangered U.S. service members if revealed, the messages from Walz and Ratcliffe in the chat Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg was added to contained equally sensitive information, these sources said. Now, I still don't know who added this guy, same guy who he broke the suckers and losers hoax. Why that guy, of all people, an irrelevant reporter, gets slung into a chat amongst the top-level U.S. officials? How in the world does that happen? Who did that? Who added that person? That's what I want to know. Who's the insider? This is what Donald Trump's going to be fighting for the next, 3.5 years, is the worms inside of the system, right? The poison, the ones looking to poison the well. Because he hasn't eliminated the deep state. Just because he got elected doesn't mean the deep state doesn't exist, and doesn't mean the deep state isn't after him. or after any of his cabinet members, because discrediting a cabinet member is no different than discrediting him. And I want to know who added Jeffrey Goldberg, of all people, to that thread. But nonetheless, what I have read, and I probably don't have everything, because Jeffrey Goldberg said that, no, he's not going to release all of it. There could be classified information. Other people are saying, no, there wasn't classified information in it. But the conversations I have seen, again, just to stop yammering about this, is that these are conversations I want to be had. But the manner in which they are having them and the app they are using, that's in question. And if it turns out something like that was shared, I will be the first one to say, that was bad. Bad juju. Okay. So he addressed all that, but really my biggest question to you guys is that I would love to see down in the comment section, the Greenland thing. Do you think it's a good move for Donald Trump to and J.D. Vance to be pushing this hard for us to get Greenland? I personally think it's good. You guys let me know. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, moving right along here, is the Democrats had a plan. It was written in a book, by the way. The Democrats had a plan for Biden to, quote, die in office. Talked about candidate switcheroo in 2023, a book claims. Okay, so let me read a little bit of this because this is fascinating. Democrats had planned for former President Joe Biden to die in office before the election and had staged, quote, hush-hush talks, planning for a then potential switch out of former President Joe Biden in the election race as early as 2023, according to a new book written by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, which is the name of the book, cites two anonymous sources for the claims and additionally tells of aides to former Vice President Kamala Harris, who, quote, strategized about the possibility that Biden might die in office, per a report from The Guardian. The question over Biden's mental fitness as well as age reportedly weighed on a number of staffers around the vice president. There were even plans reportedly laid out by Harris's White House communications director, Jamal Simmons, to draw up a, quote, death pool roster of federal judges to swear in if Biden met his demise while in office, according to the authors. This is, there's stuff like this coming out all the time, but it speaks to the decline that Scott Jennings was talking about in that first clip. You mean we were lied to for 4 years. We knew that he was cognitively declined, and yet the media pushed it aside. The Democrat Party pushed it aside and went as far as to lie to us, saying, no, the guy's as healthy as an ox. He's fine. He's fine. I've been sitting in these meetings with him, and he is sharp. He's articulate, right? This is what they were telling us on a loop for 4 years. Meanwhile, the American people are saying, I don't know what guy you were talking to, but it wasn't Joe Biden. And therein lies the question, right? They might have said that the president was sharp and articulate, but were they actually talking about the acting president, Joe Biden, or one of his staffers, or whoever it happens to be, his chief of staff? But this tells us that even years ago, while they were in the midst of telling us that he was fine, they were already making plans. Like, this dude ain't gonna make it. He's not gonna go the mile. He can't go the distance. He ain't got the miles left in him. What are we going to do? Let's start making plans because this dude is going to croak. The Democrats are saying that. And this is also indicative of the I don't know, underhanded politics, the backdoor, deep state, good old boy system that puts someone like a Joe Biden in the White House as nothing more than a figurehead, and then they run things behind the scenes. We just had an election. Yeah. This dude ain't gonna make it the whole 9 yards. Let's start planning for the guy that or gal that we're gonna replace him with because we know he ain't gonna make it. And I guess they were just as surprised as we were when he made it all the way to the end of his presidency, and it's kind of frightening that sort of a system exists inside of the United States. It really is. But this is what Donald Trump is exposing it. His staff is exposing it. And this is what's being rolled back. The ability for a deep state to function like that. You really just have to, he's got to make a mess of it. He has to confuse that system, find those people, and prosecute them. Wow. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Rochester, New York. Why in the world do we talk about Rochester, New York? Well, in Rochester, New York, they are basically prosecuting police officers who helped ICE. ICE sent a call out and said, hey, we need assistance. We need backup. Rochester police officer said, okay, fine, we'll go help you, brothers in blue. And now the police department, the city, they are coming down on these police officers. So listen to this report.
And he has 12 Rochester police officers facing scrutiny over their response to a traffic stop by federal immigration agents.
I was made aware of an incident that occurred on Monday night when our officers were urgently called to assist Border Patrol.
Good evening, I'm Matt Malloy. The actions of multiple RPD officers under review tonight. The mayor says when Border Patrol officers called for backup on Monday evening, several city officers responded, and in the course of helping with the traffic stop, they violated the terms of Rochester's sanctuary city status. 13 Wham's Daniel Finkelstein joins us now with a breakdown of what the mayor says happened, how the police union is responding, and what happens next. Daniel, good evening.
Good evening, Matt. While helping on that traffic stop, Mayor Evans says RPD officers verbally directed the occupants to exit the vehicle and then helped handcuff him. That's where he says city police went too far. It happened early Monday evening near here, Whitney Street off Lyle Avenue on the city's west side.
The Rochester Police Department received an emergency request for backup at the scene of a traffic stop.
A request from Border Patrol officers who had stopped a van. Chief David Smith says when a police supervisor arrived, he canceled the emergency response based on what he saw.
From watching the body-worn camera footage, what is concerning to me is, despite the fact that we were called, we went lights and siren, I see in the video a total lack of urgency on the part of multiple Border Patrol officers at the scene.
Smith says Border Patrol should have initiated contact with those in the car, but instead it was RPD. The mayor says city officers acted outside their scope.
The officers on the scene were verbally directed the occupants to get out of the vehicle. And this is against our policy.
Rochester's sanctuary city resolution was passed in 1986 and was later reaffirmed in 2017. That and RPD's General Order 502 prohibits RPD from enforcing federal immigration law, but allows for certain levels of assistance, only to ensure the safety of those involved.
We are not to be handcuffing subjects. We are not to be doing pat frisks on subjects, and we are absolutely not going to be detaining them or putting them into our cars.
Okay, look, I have to say this. This is sanctuary city. This is why it was ICE. They can't be seen supporting ICE. They have to, in fact, do everything they can to not help ICE, to oppose ICE. This is what sanctuary cities do. They have to stop the the folks that are trying to actually enforce the law. But let me ask you this: would they aid somebody if those people were a rapist? Would they do it if they were spousal abusers? What if they were terrorists or bank robbers, whatever it happens to be? Would they be assisting then? The answer is yes, but simply because they broke federal law, which they did, they say, well, coming across the border illegally, stealing taxpayer money, which they're all doing, that is all breaking the law. But they're basically saying we can distinguish which laws we will and will not enforce, federal laws. And for the Democrats, this is simply because they're voters. They don't want to arrest and deport their voters. Period. End of story. So this, in my mind, spurred the necessity for us to look at local elections, and some people are doing that. Scott Pressler has been deeply involved in a lot of state elections. But we've got to be involved in local politics, because even in small towns across America, things can shift to the left really, really, really fast. And next thing you know, you've got a bunch of lefties in on your city council, and they're saying, well, now we're going to go ahead and make this city, this normally red city or middle of the road city, we're going to make it a sanctuary city. Then crime goes through the roof. Things only get worse. But here they're going to the level in Rochester of saying, well, we're just going to throw the cops in prison because they helped them in a traffic stop that involved illegal immigrants. We got to watch out, everybody. This stuff will creep up on people. And I would love to know, I don't know, I doubt there's anybody there could be somebody from Rochester listening right now. Do you think that is a reasonable response? to say, well, the police officers who were helping federal law enforcement agents enforce federal law, because they would do it if it was for, a murder charge. They would go after them. It would help the FBI if it was organized crime. But because that crime involves illegal immigrants, no, now we're going to go after the cops. What in the world kind of precedent does that set? That's really wild. Really wild. Okay. RFK Jr. We got to talk about him. RFK Jr. called the governor of West Virginia fat, and he called him that to his face. Now, apparently he had a discussion with him before. It was pretty funny, but I can't wait to see this guy's progress. Well, let me let you listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
I got to know, I said to Dr. Morris, or Governor Morrissey, the first time I saw him, I said, you look like you ate Governor Morrissey. and there was a lot of talk about getting healthy again, and I'm very happy that he's invited me to be his personal trainer. And I am going to put him... I'm going to put him on a really rigorous regimen, and we're going to put him on a carnivore diet. We're going to make him raise your hand if you want Governor Morrissey to do a public weigh-in once a month. And then when he's lost 30 pounds, I'm going to come back to the state and do a celebration and a public weigh-in with him. I got to know.
I mean, talk about somebody who's, the guy's committed. That's setting quite an example when the governor of the state, which West Virginia is, like a lot of southern states, is notoriously unhealthy. But to come out and say, all right, this guy, you're obviously fat. You're the governor, which I can sympathize with. I'm going to put you on a carnivore diet. I'm going to be your personal trainer. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want a 70-something-year-old guy like RFK Jr., it's guy's shredded, being your personal trainer? I mean, sir, come help this guy out. But he was talking about the carnivore diet, and I don't talk about diet stuff all that often. I don't plan to, but this is a controversial thing. I've actually done it before, and it was to massive, massive success, to the tune of losing 54 pounds. But it kind of speaks to the disinformation among, especially with the food industry. Everybody knows the food pyramid that was plastered up in the schools, that was actually done by the Department of Agriculture. That wasn't even done by the Department of Health. It wasn't necessarily even approved by doctors. And there was a funny meme about it on South Park where they flipped it upside down and everybody started getting healthy. But listen to this. This is Michaela Peterson, who has been a huge proponent of the carnivore diet. Listen to this.
In the first study on the carnivore diet, released by Harvard this November, that I actually read in the Oxford University Press 2 days ago, which was convenient, they ended the study with, contrary to common expectations, adults consuming a carnivore diet experienced few adverse effects and instead reported health benefits and high satisfaction. The generalizability of these findings and the long-term effects of this dietary pattern require further study. The surprise came because an average of 90% of people saw improvements across all diseases on the diet. 1 in 4 people over 64 have type 2 diabetes in America. All respondents with diabetes discontinued non-insulin injection agents. 84% discontinued oral medication, and 92% of participants on the carnivore diet with type 2 diabetes discontinued insulin altogether. Over 2,000 people were studied who were on the diet for over 6 months, and there was a 90% reduction in all diseases. In the first study,
it is wildly, and again, I'm not a health expert, so don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But it's just the opposite of what we have been told by the food industry, by the commercial health industry, by the pharmaceutical companies, the same ones that want to sell you statins and all this, that eating this plant-based diet with you could read about the defense chemicals and all that stuff, the pesticides. RFK Jr. talks about Monsanto and how they are involved in the production of food, the same people who sell the pesticides. So it is this weird, corrupt system that has led us down the road, and not just us, but other countries as well, down the road of obesity and disease, chronic disease, hundreds of billions of dollars trillions of dollars actually, in health costs. Meanwhile, people say, well, I'm just going to try this. Let me try just eating meat. I'm just going to eat red meat. And some people meat with like smatterings of certain fruits and vegetables, but largely a protein-based diet. And what happens to all of them? Their diseases start to abate. Their health starts to improve. They start losing weight. They start getting tighter skin. They start having higher testosterone. They have all of these monstrous benefits, anti-aging benefits, and overall health benefits from eating the opposite of what we've been told. It's something, I'm glad studies are being done on it because like I say, I did it. The problem with me, it was food is like an addiction for a lot of people. It's the same way for me. It's no different than anybody else. You know, you eat the same trash, anything out of a bag, something that sits on a shelf and won't rot is not good for you, but it sure does taste good. And it triggers the dopamine. And when you get stressed and you stress eat, you know, that's what people go back to. And that's why there's that ebb and flow of it. It's no different than being a heroin addict or being an alcoholic or whatever it happens to be. You're chasing that dopamine. You're chasing that pleasure center of your brain, and the stuff that they are pumping full or that they throw into our food that's in a bag that sits on a shelf and doesn't rot, it tastes really good. And for whatever reason, you feel really good right after you eat it. Maybe all that stuff is bad for us. Maybe some red meat is the answer to a lot of your problems. So I thought it was cool that RFK Jr. called the guy out, the governor of West Virginia, and says, all right, you're fat, dude. You've gotten huge. I'm going to be your personal trainer. You're going to do a monthly weigh-in in front of your citizens, and we're going to let them see you get healthy. The representative of the people. Right? And that's the guy that we've got running HHS versus the morbidly obese man pretending to be a woman that we had in the Biden administration, although he wasn't the actual full-on head of HHS, but he was supposed to be advising us on health, a person with a living openly with mental health problems and an obesity problem. Things have changed, everybody. They are changing for the better. I'm so happy to see it. So happy to see it. I smattered that one in there. I should have actually played this one, or not played this one, but shown you this one before. And I will play the video here in a minute. But Tim Walz, wow. Tim Walz is, you know, he's an interesting cat. Let's just put it that way. He called openly for a shadow government. I'm going to play the video clip for you. Let me pull it up here on X. But he calls for a shadow government to combat Trump. Oh boy, what are we going to do? Well, we got to have a shadow government, right? We can't let Trump keep running things. This is that same shadow government that we were talking about. You know, this is what they're accustomed to. This is what the Democrats, they speak the language of shadow government, right? That's how they believe our system should be run.
First things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. And look, I don't know what the answer is on this, but I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening.
Where's the outrage on that one? You're not going to see it from the left, but you're going to see it here. Goodness gracious. He openly says this. He says, I think we need a shadow government. Yeah, you know, so we'll hold our own. Like, we'll say we're the real American government, right? We're the real representatives of the people. And here's what you need to believe. Listen to Rachel Maddow, our press secretary. You know what I'm saying? I mean, good gracious. And not just that, but the let me play this here. This is Tim Walz now saying, well, the election was stolen, which, by the way, I thought was verboten. You know, this is what we were told for the longest time. Here, listen to this. This is really wild.
I hope they all have seen the reports from cybersecurity experts that they've released analyses of election data out of Clark County, Nevada, that show some pretty convincing evidence of election tampering. My biggest fear is that we're not going to make it to the midterms. So what can we do to make sure, A, that the midterms actually happen, and B, that they're free of fraud?
Yeah. Well, This one's the core. We saw just recently Donald Trump's executive order to make it more difficult, specifically to women, trying to make it more difficult for women to be able to vote. We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. And I don't know what the answer is on this.
That seems to be his thing. I don't know what the answer is, but let me go ahead and tell you what you need to think. I just thought, after all those years of us talking about what went on in Arizona and what went on in Pennsylvania and all these states, where we were looking at the evidence, we were seeing it, and yet being told, no, that didn't happen. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes, American people, that now Tim Walz is saying it, and it's fine. It's legitimate. It's legitimate if there's, there's actual voter fraud if Democrats lose. There's no way there could be voter fraud if the Republicans lose. There's no way there could be voter fraud if the Republicans lose. If the Democrats win, it was a fair election. It's that they can't handle the mandate. They can't handle the fact that we said, no, we're over this. And not me. I was going to vote conservative no matter what. But a lot of these middle of the road folks were like, no, I can't take this anymore. I'm done with it. I ain't voting Democrat anymore. They can't fathom it. They're like, no, it's not possible. It's just not possible. So to combat this, we need a shadow government. We need to start shouting about election integrity all of a sudden. We need to make sure that we don't have any of these voter ID laws, which is something that they're still fighting in a lot of places. Get rid of these voter ID laws. No more voter ID laws. They're racist. Bah, 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 bah. Right? Oh, wow. But at least we're not the UK. Not yet, anyway. We're moving rapidly in that direction, unfortunately. But so listen to what's going on in the UK. This is really, really wild. This is a report from GB News. And we're going to talk about this. I have some pointers on this, and let me go ahead and play it. Here we go.
In this response, and the Lord Chancellor is obviously continuing to engage on this, and we're considering our response. All options are on the table, but I am disappointed at this outcome, and now we'll have to consider what we do as a result.
Well, let's cross live to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Now, it seems to me, Chopper, that the politicians want the Sentencing Council to change their direction here, but they're not willing to legislate to do so. They're in a bit of a war of words here.
Yes, they are. And hi, Charlie. Hi, Nana. Welcome to Huddersfield, where it's pretty cold up here. I've been talking to the Prime Minister moments ago. I asked him twice, will you just scrap the Sentencing Council? It's a quango. You have the power to scrap it. What you don't do is have the power to overrule it. And frankly, the judges now are looking back at the elected politicians here, both Sir Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, who is a Justice Secretary, and saying, I'm afraid to say, these are what's going to happen. And from Tuesday, this is what will happen. Judges will prepare pre-sentencing reports where necessary, and if someone is of ethnic, cultural or faith minority, or a young person under 25, or a woman or a pregnant woman, they will get a special sentencing report. Normally those pre-sentencing reports do mean that the sentence is mitigated, that time is taken off for a jail term, for example. What it means, though, is that white men are going to be treated a lot tougher by judges from Tuesday compared to other groups in society. And that is unacceptable to the Prime Minister. He said in terms there, I said twice, would you scrap the Sentencing Council? He said all options are open. Shabana Mahmood, she's the Justice Secretary, she's put out a note just moments ago. She said that in her view, these guidelines represent clear differential treatment under which someone's outcomes may be influenced by their race, culture or religion. This is unacceptable, says the Justice Secretary, and I formally set out my objection, she says.
Okay, so what does all that mean? All that means is, based on your ethnicity, your religion, other some immutable characteristics, or because of where you come from, you will be treated differently by the justice system. Differently by the justice system simply because of your race. And here's kind of the summary around this. Is he mentioned it, but I'm going to put it in Americanese here. If you are an ethnic or religious minority, if you're a young adult, a pregnant woman, and an abuse survivor, and are being criminally charged with something, okay, that means you are going to get a lighter sentence You are going to be taken, basically they'll be shaving time off because of those circumstances. Well, who falls into those? Ethnic minorities do. Ethnic minorities and religious minorities. A lot of them are talking about Muslims. You're talking about African or black people. You're talking about that sort of thing. So they are basically drawing lines that say, well, if you're disenfranchised, as we see it, because of our leftist system, then we're going to shave a little time off. We're not going to, it's not that we're going to, let me rephrase this. If your culture is crumbling amongst your group of people, wherever you happen to live, whatever your culture happens to be, your kids are getting pregnant, you're going to jail, there's abuse that's rampant in your world, then they see it as the justice system's fault, and therefore the justice system needs to be overhauled. And instead of fixing the problem, what they're going to do is tilt the justice system in favor of that particular ethnicity or that particular minority over the people who aren't being arrested as much and who aren't in what they would consider desperate situations or disparate situations. So they make this about ethnicity, which ethnicity has nothing to do with it. It's all about culture and the culture that has been cultivated amongst the people of those particular ethnicities. And that's just a fact. That's just the way that it is. It's going on here in America. It's going on in the UK. It's going on in, other developed countries. And so now obviously with the migrant problem that you've got in the UK, those people are technically minorities, but not in every place. In a lot of places, the native culture the native residents, native people are being outnumbered by illegal migrants, in particular Muslim migrants, which is where you get the violence. And so they're subsidizing the violence by manipulating the justice system, is what they're doing. How in the world? And I bring that up because a lot of times we see things that happen in Canada, we see things happening in the UK, and it finds its way to America. And we have to be aware of it. We have to be aware that people on the left will go to those lengths to say, well, that blindfold, and I've said it before, they would love it if Lady Justice didn't have a blindfold on here in America, that she was peeking out one, checking on, okay, who are we after? Christian? Yeah, okay. Higher prison sentence. That's the way they would love for the system to work. But it's happening in the UK, and this is supposed to go into effect Monday, and there's no way that they can stop it before then. And Keir Starmer is essentially being non-committal about what he thinks of it. Should this be stopped or should it go forward? And they try everything. The UK, the left here in America is very much in line with what they do in the UK, which I'm surprised more of them don't move to the UK. But they've got a violence problem largely because of the migrants. And they're saying, well, now we're going to ban swords. I think it's Idris Elba was his name, the guy, he's an actor. And Idris Elba was talking about, well, let's round off all our kitchen knives, right? So we don't have stabbing problems. Well, they took away guns. They're taking away knives. They take away this. They take away that. They ban it. And they say it's going to fix everything. It's going to change everything. And nothing changes, and they just keep banning things. So the British PM pledges to, quote, ban ninja swords by summer to curb crime. So this is from Zero Hedge, and it says, what an interesting ancillary benefit of mass migration Keir Starmer has invented for himself, an excuse to further disarm the British people in the name of fighting mass stabbings, thereby furthering the terror they live under, as one by one their means of self-defense are stripped away along with every other fundamental right formerly recognized in the West. What a great way to put it. These kids, random stabbings, you can see the video all over the internet. In the UK, people stabbings and it's acid attacks and all these horrible things being carried out by Muslim migrants from countries that don't have shared values with anybody in the West, or really with most of the developed world. And they say, we are here now and you should live as we want you to live, even though this isn't our country, even though we're here illegally. And when you don't do that, we're going to do what they do best. Rule by terror. We're going to change the culture by terror. We're going to stab you. We're going to throw acid in your face. And that the government, instead of saying, maybe we should crack down on this, maybe we should arm our people. Because you know what we have found to be a pretty useful deterrent in a lot of states in America? It's carrying a gun, packing heat. You pack a little heat, and it's a little less likely that somebody's going to jump you, that somebody's going to rob you. If you're in East Tennessee, you rarely hear about people being robbed. Why? Because everybody's packing. And a lot of people have one sitting on their, they've got one sitting in the drawer of their coffee table. They could be sitting in the den watching a movie at night. You come barging in and you're going to meet your demise from lead poisoning. That's why I love East Tennessee, my East Tennessee people. Why I couldn't wait to get back and out of Virginia. Although Youngkin's been doing pretty good. But the UK's fallen, right? I said it on the Braver Than the Rest podcast. I'll give a shameless plug. I do another podcast with some guys on Wednesday nights. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's called Braver Than the Rest. Be sure to check it out if you haven't checked it out before. And on Braver Than the Rest, we were talking about the first nuclear-armed country, how a lot of people are saying that it's going to actually be the UK or some other country in Europe that's nuclear-armed due to the migrant problem. They come in, they are with immunity. They're being allowed into these countries. Open borders. So who's going to be the first nuclear-armed country? People say, oh, it's going to be Iran or it's going to... No, Could be the UK. Could be France. To be determined. Whew. And I'm going to end on this. This is I'm going over. Normally I don't go 50 minutes. I'm usually at a 45 minutes, but I'm just going to keep rolling. It's only a couple more things that are very interesting. This is a sad, sad story, but we talk about the breakdown in culture in general in America. There is violence that I see. The algorithm has been feeding it to me, maybe because I'm watching so much of it and I'm paying so much attention to it. But I mean, check this out. This is in a junior high. The teachers. This is what I want you to watch. The teacher's reaction. Check this out.
Oh shit!
There's a little language in there. Oh, hey guy, stop. Look at that teacher. He doesn't even put his coffee down. Hey, stop it. And then boom, right in the face. Kid's unconscious. Pants around his ankles. And everybody's standing around. What possesses these kids to harbor such violence? But I see dozens of videos like this every single day. Every single day I'm seeing this. And it blows my mind every time that kids are this violent. And I think it's a discipline problem. It's a family problem because families are broken across America, across the country. There's no fathers in the household. But in response to that, I'm going to show you something funny. Not that that's funny, obviously, but it really, I believe, explains why we have violent kids who are entitled and all of this. Watch this.
Wait. I am so sorry that I said that it was time to go. How about we start a timer? No! Gentle hands. Gentle hands. Gentle hands. I know you're having so many big feelings right now. Mommy just wants to validate them. Gentle hands. Hands are for gentle. I am not going to cause you any more anxiety than you already have. I will be right here ready for you to get up. I can see you're having a hard time not hitting. Do you need my help to stop?
No!
Can you say sorry to Mommy?
No!
Sorry is a scary word. Can Mommy help you, please? Do I have your consent to comfort you? Need to get up right now?
No!
I thought that, but I was like, you know what? That's the problem. It's discipline. It really is. I mean, look, I'm not saying I was a perfect kid. I was a hellion for part of my life. But when I was younger and I had something to fall back on, and that was the discipline that my parents gave me. And, when I actually started to grow up and stopped being a heathen and stopped being a difficult child and tried to become an adult, right? I had something to fall back on. And that was the discipline of my parents. And kids I feel like they don't have that. And I'm not saying you got to spank your kids. Everybody's got their own way of disciplining them. But a harsher form of justice than, talking about let me just talk about your feelings. We'll do the feelings thing. That's not working. Giving kids everything they want, it ain't working. But I think having the man in the house, regardless of how that man disciplines the kids, that's what makes a monstrous difference as well. Young men need to learn how to control their violence, and they really, really don't. Because even Jordan Peterson says you should be capable of violence, but have the self-control to not use it unless it's absolutely necessary. Violence is supposed to be used at certain times. There are very justified times for violence. If I'm protecting my wife, I'm going to use violence. If I'm protecting my family, I'm going to use violence. If you're protecting your country and you're going to war, use all the violence you can muster, right? But these kids have they're trying to find some way to let it go. And now social media says, you know what? If you beat the crap out of this kid, you can get an awful lot of clicks and you can become internet famous. And they say, oh, let's do that. Let's walk down the street and sucker punch people and all the other silliness they're doing. Okay. Wow. Little discipline. Maybe we'll get back around to that. Well, guys, that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I truly, truly appreciate it. Please be sure to do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. Hit me up in the comments. If you got anything that you want me to talk about, I'm going to get into some deeper topics other than just the news, but that's coming down the road. I'm working on the format for that one. And so we'll have a nice mixture of that. And you may see me, by the way, in coming weeks. Certain days I'll be on the road, so I might be broadcasting from afar. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless America, and I'll see you in the next video.